Alright, so you want to make games, but you're just an artist, and it feels like games require so much technical knowledge to get up and running that it almost feels impossible to pinpoint where exactly to start your journey. I know that feeling all too well. So many times in my life, I've wondered how exactly are artists able to gain technical skills to eventually create the games of their dreams. And truth be told, that answer will definitely vary from artist to artist. But what I can share is how I would start my game dev journey if I were to do it all over again. Now, this video isn't an extensive guide on how to specifically do things related to game dev, but more or less a roadmap for things I've done in my life that have significantly improved my understanding as an artist and also as a game dev. Now, funnily enough, one of the things I loved doing before I ever made my first game was drawing mockups. Now, mockups are actually super integral in the planning phase of games, but I didn't start out thinking of them as part of a game. I did them as one-off art pieces for ideas that may have been in my head for a while. All throughout my life, I produced countless mockups from the age of 12 all the way into adulthood, ranging from all sorts of different genres from fighting games, visual novels, to RPGs. These are a very low barrier entry into creating game art as they do not involve making games, but brainstorming and iterating them. You can think of mockups as sketches for a game, and they can be based off of any part of a game. Have two OCs you want to see duke it out in some cool arena? Sketch out what that may look like. Add an HP bar, special attack gauges, timers, life counters, anything. For artists, sometimes the best way to get an idea down is to sketch it out. So let loose. Most of my mockups were for story-based projects I wanted to create, so a lot of them consisted of my OCs interacting with each other or looking cool. Believe it or not, when I was studying game design in college, this was something that my professors always wanted us to do, and I remember drafting up multiple mockups for various elements of our game. This could even fall into the conceptual art category as well, but the difference was mainly due to the graphic design elements that were also included, which is why I blanket statement all of it by simply calling them mockups. So I'd start with this to get comfortable coming up with cool ideas and scenarios that can be expanded on in a game. Now, this next step I'd say is more of a continuation of the previous tip, which is to make game stills and game animations. Game stills and game animations breathe life into the mockups you drafted, and they really help train your artistic eye to make good game aesthetics. Creating these also involves no programming, which also makes them super fun for artists that don't have a whole lot of technical experience. I've made quite a few game animations, especially within these past 5 years, and I can honestly say that as an artist, this is probably my favorite step, as it marries the aesthetics of a game without having to actually create it, which is the hard part. And as a bonus, these function as really cool projects that can give you inspiration every now and again when you eventually start creating the games you want to create. For me, I started out making fake Persona 5 cutscenes with my OCs, but I quickly started making my own custom game animations, even eventually creating a full kinetic visual novel titled The Void. But I've made fighting game animations, visual novel animations, and a ton of 3D animations, which really inspired me to learn how to actually make these things function with programming, which eventually leads us to the next step. Starting with a low-code/no-code game engine. Programming background game devs are booing in unison, I know, but I'm gonna need y'all to sit down for a second and let me explain. There are many perks to using an engine that requires little coding knowledge for people who are not as technically inclined, since it gives them a lot of the bare essentials they'll need to eventually make a project. Now, yes, you do hand over a bit of flexibility when it comes to these engines. However, these engines are a very solid place to learn the important concepts and game design principles that are not programming specific. And they give artists the tools they need to make their art take form. A fair bit of artists may only wish to tell a story in a non-linear fashion that something like a comic book wouldn't allow for, but a game does. And it is completely fair for them to want to make the story come to life in an engine that has a lot of the basic functionality already built in. Professionals do this all the time when it comes to plugins with Unity, Unreal, or Godot. So there's no shame in doing that with genre-specific engines too. For some artists, this may be all you're interested in, just making your art do things, which a lot of these low-code engines will allow you to do. I remember making my first couple of RPG Maker and Tyranno Builder games, and doing these small projects in those engines really helped me gain the confidence to start actually learning programming. And when it comes to learning programming, the one tip that really helped me learn faster with it was by participating in game jams. Game jams are great because they force you to make something within a time limit. And for artists, our ideas can get a little crazy at times, so participating in these really help us learn to rein in our concepts into something that is completable. Moreover, game jams help you learn new things very quickly. If you're in a team full of artists and none of you program, congratulations, one of you is learning how to program. And if you are entering one alone, you'll have to program, but don't be intimidated. Game jams aren't about making the game as pretty as possible. It's about making a game, period. Utilizing any means you have at your disposal to finish the project within the time limit. You're going to have to rely on YouTube tutorials, referencing documentation, researching community forums, and even asking ChatGPT. But the more you look at programming, the easier it gets to understand. And this is coming from a guy who never would have touched programming if I didn't want to make games. It'll be daunting, you'll think it's overwhelming, and it will take a bit before it starts to click. But things do eventually start to click, where you won't even have to be a good programmer to make things. Like me, I suck at programming, but I know just enough. And that's all you need as an artist when it comes to programming your stuff. Learn just enough to have a general understanding of the language you're looking at and know how to research the mechanic you want to add into your game. Again though, game jams just fast track you to learning all of this stuff quicker. I can't speak much more on the programming piece since it's my weakest area and I'm still learning as much as I can, but all I can say is it isn't terrible once you get into it. It took me a while, but looking at code isn't as intimidating as it used to be, and it can be the same for you if you give it a chance. Finally, my last piece of advice is to eventually start working on the projects you're passionate about. All of these tips can apply here, but the easiest way to learn is by having fun. The project you want to make is not an impossible task or an unachievable dream. You just have to use your strengths to your advantage and know when to cut back on things. The great thing about being an artist is our creativity. Thinking of creative ways to scale content back, create mechanics with little programming knowledge, and overall using what we know to make something unique is what leads to games that we would never have had otherwise. If you don't know how to do something and you feel stuck, try to find a way to make something out of the roadblock you hit. And that's easier said than done, but limitation breeds ingenuity and creativity. Hopefully these tips helped you. I know I didn't cover things like enrolling in a game dev class, seeking a mentorship, or doing an online course, and that's not because those things don't work or anything. I actually recommend those a lot if you can do it, but mainly because I wanted to provide a simple roadmap that involves a little bit of flexibility in choosing the kind of game artist you want to be. Not everyone is going to need to take a course to improve their skills. Moreover, some people may not have access, which could be another barrier for learning. So I tried to make this a super reasonable roadmap for how I would eventually get into game dev as an artist. Now, if you're new here, my name is Chris. I'm a game dev storyteller artist and now a graphic novelist making content here on YouTube to help creatives improve their mindset and complete the projects they want to complete. If that sounds like you, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe to your boy. I upload bi-weekly and the goal is to stay consistent throughout this year with this channel and on my project The Turn-Based Hero, which you can learn more on my socials at chrismason_01 on all platforms except Blue Sky. I'm just chrismason01 over there. But with that, I'm gonna go ahead and get about. I appreciate you guys for watching this video and I hope you got something out of it. Take it easy.